Come and read more of my works on the website under Yuan. Keywords of the novel. Ultimate Abandoned Prince No Pop-ups, Ultimate Abandoned Prince TXT Complete Collection Download, Ultimate Abandoned Prince Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Abolishing the Crown Prince. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Abolishing the Crown Prince, Beasts. A soft scolding came, as if Ningyan, who was not in a dream, suddenly woke up. At this moment, a disheveled ancient costume girl stood in front of him, holding an inkstone in her hand and glaring fiercely at him. Who are you? Ningyan was startled. He was recently carried into an ambulance and is now most likely in the hospital. Could it be that the ambulance made a mistake and pulled him to a mental hospital? How else can we explain the girl in front of us who is suspected to be a patient? As she was lost in thought, Ningyan suddenly felt a slight swelling and pain in her head, and some unfamiliar memories emerged like a flood of floodgates. After a moment of confusion, he understood the current situation. He has traveled through time. He is now the infamous deposed crown prince of the Daning dynasty. The legitimate son of Emperor Daning has been favored by the empress since childhood, and has developed a rebellious personality, committing all kinds of evil. 3 years ago, the intolerable emperor deposed him and demoted him to the title of King of the East China Sea. Despite this, the deposed prince remained steadfast in his character. Today he went to the palace to pay his respects to his birth mother, Empress Xiao. Coincidentally, there were women from the minister's family walking with Empress Xiao. The deposed prince immediately fell in love with the young girl in front of him. So the false order of Empress Xiao was passed on, and the palace maids led the young girl to the side hall, with ulterior motives. He just didn't expect this girl to be even stronger than him, as if she had practiced boxing and feet before. However, she couldn't steal, and instead her head was fiercely smashed by the girl. What kind of person are you? How dare you do something wrong in the palace? When Ningyan was in a daze, the girl scolded again, and the inkstone shook, hesitating whether to give the disciple in front of her another chance. After understanding everything, Ningyan came to her senses and guessed the girl's intentions. She quickly said, I am Ningyan, the king of the East China Sea. The girl's blow just now has already sent the deposed crown prince to the west, and he doesn't want to be taken too. Ningyan. Donghai King. The girl's face slightly changed as she heard the name. She was very familiar with it. Ningyan nodded and breathed a sigh of relief. Judging from the girl's expression, she probably won't do anything more. However, after the initial shock, the girl quickly calmed down, her eyes turning as if pondering something. The sense of tranquility is not good. Recently, there have been rumors that Emperor Ning Chun has become increasingly disgusted with the wrongdoing of the deposed crown prince, and he is determined to find a way to punish him. It is not ruled out that he will be exiled or demoted to a commoner. The most ruthless imperial family. Since ancient times, there have been few good outcomes for deposing princes in history. For an emperor, nothing is more important than maintaining their own authority. Since Emperor Ning Chun was able to depose his legitimate son, he could also serve as a warning to the emperor and win the hearts of the people for the sake of the court's laws and regulations. Moreover, the deposed crown prince is basically unable to be restored, and in the eyes of various forces, he is like a waste and insignificant. This time, the crown prince's mind has been haunted by the harassment of ministers and women in the palace. If a young girl complains, he will be finished. Thinking of this, Ningyan smiled kindly, wanting to turn big things into small ones. So he said, the only normal man who can freely enter and exit the queen's palace, besides the emperor, is this king. The rumor is true, you villain. Ningyan's friendly smile not only did not make the girl relax her guard, but also tightened her grip on the inkstone. She has heard so much about the evil deeds of this deposed crown prince that she often wishes to beat him up. In her opinion, Ningyan is smiling like an old fox at this moment. To avoid being entangled again, the girl slowly took a few steps back and turned to open the palace door to escape. Ning An secretly said that it was broken. If the young girl goes out, the ugly incident caused by the deposed crown prince may not be able to be contained. In a hurry, he came to his senses and rushed to the ground, covering his forehead and shouting, "Oh my, I'm going to die. Someone has assassinated me." Someone, how could there be a female assassin in the palace? The girl who was about to go out heard this and immediately stopped her steps. She turned around in shock and anger and said, "You're talking nonsense, it's clearly you." She had never seen such a shameless person before, who could be turned upside down. Ning An's kind smile faded and she deliberately pretended to be a rogue smile. In fact, he is more innocent, and it's not that he wants to take advantage of the girl. But when talking to the young girl in a serious manner, she definitely doesn't believe in the character of the useless prince. In order to resolve the crisis, he can only create chips in the void. If a villain complains first, he may even play the role of a villain and have a chance to turn the tide. So he said, "Miss, now the two of us are here. Heaven knows and earth knows, you know and I know, but others don't know. Are you and I like this, like you attacking me or bullying me?" The girl was taken aback and looked at the inkstone in her hand, as well as the East Sea King whose head was still bleeding. She looked at herself again, and apart from her clothes being a bit messy, she didn't even have any scars. If outsiders look, it really seems like she attacked the East Sea King. She was first bullied by the East Sea King, but now she has been falsely accused. Under the injustice, she can't help but feel angry and anxious, her eyes turning red. Upon seeing this, Ning An felt a bit guilty of bullying the little girl. But this was not caused by him. Since we have traveled through time, who wouldn't want to lie drunk on the knees of a beautiful woman and wake up to control the world? Without stopping the girl, he was afraid of getting cold. So he continued, "Girl, why don't we discuss it? You can't touch me, otherwise I'll kill you and then commit suicide." Ning An's evil smile made the girl think he had ulterior motives and immediately raised the inkstone in his hand. Ning An quickly took a step back and secretly said that this girl is really a little chilly. Previously, the deposed crown prince also did things in the palace to flirt with ministers and their wives. But at that time he was the crown prince, with power and influence. The ministers and their women were frightened and dared not speak up. This is also why he dares to repeat his old tricks in the palace. But he clearly didn't realize that today is different from the past. He is no longer the crown prince that everyone admires, and this time he has caused a lot of criticism. Shaking his head, he said, "Miss, I misunderstood. Actually, what I want to say is, please pretend that things in the side hall haven't happened. I didn't encounter Miss, but instead, my head was smashed and blood was shed. It was you who took advantage, and I suffered a loss." After pausing for a moment, Ning An coaxed her gently and said, "Moreover, if this matter were to be spread, it would not be good for the reputation of the girl. What do those talented and wealthy young masters who admire the girl think? What do they think? The reputation of the king is notorious, and I am not afraid of it being even worse. It would be a pity to tarnish the reputation of the girl." "Humph, you have some self-awareness, but this." The girl listened without any intention of continuing to take advantage of her, and couldn't help but feel relieved. At the same time, I feel that what the East Sea King said also has some truth. Although the East Sea King had ulterior motives, he did not gain any advantage and even suffered losses. It's hard to say what's right or wrong when it really starts, but her reputation is about to be ruined. Looking at the disheveled and gloomy East Sea King, she almost burst out laughing and immediately suppressed herself, saying in a solemn voice, "Are you serious when you speak? Take it seriously, absolutely take it seriously." Ning An was overjoyed and quickly patted her chest, promising, "As long as the girl doesn't investigate, this matter will turn over. It's a deal." The girl's eyebrows relaxed and she agreed to Ning An. "Thank you very much, miss." Turning the tide, Ning An's hanging heart finally fell completely. At this moment, he had time to carefully examine the girl. It has to be said that the deposed crown prince still has great vision. The girl has an oval face, apricot blossom eyes, fiery red lips, and a hint of heroism between her willow eyebrows. Loose-fitting skirts and shirts are hard to conceal a beautiful and curvaceous figure, revealing a delicate and snow-white forearm that no man can refuse. He secretly praised in his heart, and suddenly heard a rapid sound of footsteps outside, as if many people were coming towards the side hall. Ning An's heart skipped a beat, and her heart, which had just fallen, hung up again. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. A mother must have her son. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. A mother must have her son, bang dang. When both Ningyan and the young girl were at a loss, suddenly someone pushed open the door of the side hall. A beautiful lady dressed in a gorgeous goose-yellow palace dress appeared in front of the door surrounded by palace maids. He is the birth mother of Ningyan, the current empress, Xiao Yubing. She felt a bit uneasy when she found that Ningyan and a minister's female family were missing. Upon inquiry, the palace maid revealed that Ningyan had instructed her to pass on her life. Knowing that her son was like her mother, Empress Xiao immediately guessed what her legitimate son was going to do. Hurriedly leading the palace maids to search, fearing that Ningyan would cause trouble again. At that time, even if she were to force her to death, Emperor Ning Chun was afraid that he would not show mercy beyond the law. Moreover, since this legitimate son was deposed, her position in the palace has declined significantly. The birth mother of the new crown prince, Yang Guifei, has become the head of the 6 palaces, and she only has the title of empress to support her face. She cannot even whisper to the emperor. She breathed a soft sigh of relief as she saw the minister's female relatives safe and sound. But as soon as she saw a big lump bulging on Ning An's head and blood flowing, she panicked and exclaimed, "My emperor, what's wrong with you?" Before Ning An could react, she was embraced by Empress Xiao. A wave of softness and warmth immediately came, and Ning An's face couldn't help but feel a little feverish. Although Empress Xiao was the biological mother of the deposed crown prince, he had just traveled and could not adapt to Empress Xiao's affection immediately. Just as he was about to break free from Empress Xiao's embrace, he heard Empress Xiao say, "Did you fight my empress? You are so brave. Even if my empress did something to you, you wouldn't be able to do it so harshly." This statement was full of anger, obviously speaking to the girl. Ningyan burst into a bitter smile. This Empress Daning is really like what he remembers, spoiling and deposing the crown prince to the point of no distinction between right and wrong. That's why this crown prince was raised and deposed. Empress, I. Suddenly, she was scolded by Empress Xiao. The girl was angry and aggrieved, unable to speak and almost shed tears. Ningyan quickly broke free from Empress Xiao and tried to smooth the situation. If he were to depose the crown prince, he would definitely act recklessly and add insult to injury in front of Empress Xiao. If he didn't get a young girl, he would also have to ruin her reputation. Ningyan naturally cannot do this, let alone being a scumbag of the crown prince. So he said, "Mother, you're wrong about this girl. It's because the child saw that this girl looks like a fairy and wanted to get close to her. Unexpectedly, she accidentally bumped into an inkstone and fainted. It was this kind-hearted girl who woke the child up. Ningyan lies without blushing or beating his heart. He has a thick skin and has been honed. Before traveling, he mistakenly entered a large pyramid scheme company while looking for a job. After several unsuccessful attempts to escape and repeated beatings, he decided to make a comeback and find a way to go straight from the bottom to the top of the pyramid scheme. For 3 years, he hung his head on a beam, stabbed his thigh with a cone, and studied tirelessly day and night. Due to his outstanding performance, he was appreciated and promoted to C2. Afterwards, he was transferred to a well-known company that appeared to be legitimate but still sold dog meat, becoming one of the top management. After being packaged by the company and even frequently appearing on TV, he has become a successful person. At this point, he has the qualification to access the highest C1 in the company. After mastering the marketing evidence of C1, he decisively reported to the police and terminated the company. Just when he led the police to arrest someone, a marketing employee who believed he had cut off everyone's financial resources attacked him. When he woke up, he arrived here. He doesn't want to recall his years of experience in a pyramid scheme company. But it must be admitted that he has a thick skin and has mastered many business skills in addition to pyramid schemes. I see. Empress Xiao laughed and her angry expression melted like ice and snow. Her gaze towards the young girl softened a lot, and she even nodded in satisfaction, praising her, "You are really a kind-hearted child." The girl breathed a sigh of relief and felt grateful for Ning An's defense. At the same time, when she heard Ning An praise her beauty, she felt a burst of joy. She doesn't want to offend the Empress, otherwise her mother may not look good and her father's career may also be affected. But she immediately started to hate again, secretly thinking that it was this bastard who brought it on her own. Why did she thank him? Suddenly, seeing Ning An's gaze cast over, with a smile on her face, she immediately stared back. Empress Xiao did not notice the clash in their eyes. Ning An didn't cause any trouble, so she felt at ease. So he said, "Emperor, come with me to the front hall and call the imperial physician to apply medicine to you. Miss Lu, come over too." This girl came with her mother, so she naturally knew her. But I only know her surname and don't know much about it. Ning An and the young girl both responded and walked far behind Empress Xiao. "Don't think I'll thank you, it's not my fault." Walking side by side, the girls suddenly said to Ning An, "I didn't ask you to thank me again, but now we're even." "As long as you don't forget our agreement," Ning An said calmly. The girl snorted and ignored Ning An. She felt strange in her heart, feeling that this deposed crown prince seemed a bit different from what was rumored. But then I realized that when I was deceived into the side hall, this deposed prince looked very beastly. How could a dog change its habit of eating feces in one go? Perhaps he just indulged in trying to get her, gaining her favor, and then looking for opportunities to bully her in the future. Yes, it must be like this. Thinking of this, she felt a chill as she moved further away from Ning An. Ning An noticed the girl's small movements, but didn't pay much attention. The girl is very beautiful, but after he entered the senior management of the company, many beautiful women also threw themselves at him. After all, there are many people in this world who want to take shortcuts, so he naturally won't be unable to walk when he sees a woman. At the front hall, Ning An was led to Empress Xiao's sleeping room. The female relatives of the minister are all in the main hall, and it is inconvenient for him as a man to go there. While waiting for the imperial physician, he saw historical books on the bookshelf in the room and picked them up to flip through. This deposed crown prince has an empty mind. Apart from bullying men and women, there is nothing else to do. He has traveled here now, so he still needs to understand the history of this world. After all, the dynasty of Daning did not exist in history. After flipping through it from beginning to end for a while, Ning An had some thoughts in her mind. This is a parallel world, with the historical line deviating from the Western Jin dynasty and the 5 barbarians flourishing against the backdrop. The Western Jin dynasty did not collapse and continued for more than 100 years. Afterwards, dynasties rose and fell, including Liang, Zhou, Chu, Chen, and others. However, these dynasties were all located in a corner, without the birth of a hero who created the prosperous era of the Tang dynasty. This made the neighboring foreign tribes of the Central Plains dynasties strong and established several kingdoms. The history of these dynasties is the history of wars with these foreign nations. At the end of the Qin dynasty, the feudal lords divided and caused great chaos for 60 years, and the world finally returned to Daning. Currently, Daning has been in power for 150 years, transitioning from prosperity to decline, and internal and external crises have emerged. To the northeast of Daning, the Jurchen people conquered the Khitan Empire 60 years ago and established the Jin dynasty. Since then, they have repeatedly invaded the Central Plains. On the grassland, a grassland empire called Naiman rose up and swept across various countries in the western regions, with the ambition of a tiger swallowing the world. In the northwest direction, there is the threat of the Western Rome, and in the southwest, there is also the threat of the Nanzhao Kingdom and the Tubo Kingdom. However, within Daning, due to the inheritance of the Western Jin dynasty's feudal system by previous dynasties to some extent, Daning was also tainted with legacy. These aristocratic families are linked by their clans, living together to control one side and subtly resist imperial power. 30 years ago, the civil unrest that erupted in the south has not yet subsided, and it continues to expand, with a momentum of occupying half of the country. It can be said that the current Daning dynasty is in danger of collapse. He was lost in thought when he suddenly heard the sound of something falling to the ground. Turning her head, she found Empress Xiao with a stunned expression, unaware that the wooden box in her hand had fallen to the ground. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Situation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Situation. My imperial son actually went to school. As the biological mother of the deposed crown prince, Empress Xiao naturally had a great understanding of Ningyan. Since childhood, Ningyan has been extremely averse to studying, and for this matter, he has even been beaten several times by Emperor Ningchun. But Ningyan would rather be beaten than study. Every time I study, it's either a headache or a stomachache. So for 16 years, this deposed crown prince could only barely recognize all the characters and had no other knowledge. That's why Empress Xiao was so shocked when she saw Ningyan studying. I'm flipping through it casually, my dear. Ningyan felt a bit embarrassed. Any parent would be pleased with the progress of their stubborn son, and Empress Xiao is no exception. However, he believed there was no need to conceal his behavior just because of Empress Xiao's reaction. Thinking that the East Sea Prince's mansion didn't have any books, he said, "Mother, can these books be lent to my courtiers?" For him, it is necessary to have a more detailed understanding of Daning, which is similar to the need to conduct market research in the early stages of doing business. In terms of military strategy, it is called knowing the enemy and oneself, and one is invincible in 100 battles. He doesn't want the deposed prince to continue to die, nor does he want his family and country to fall into ruin and become slaves of the fallen country. The romance of a man lies in the presence of women soaking in wine, lying on the knees of a beautiful woman while drunk, and waking up to control the world. Borrow all. Empress Xiao was overjoyed and quickly said to the palace maid beside her, "Go, find all the books in the dormitory and send them to the East Sea King." After speaking, Empress Xiao took Ning An's hand and asked softly, "Your Majesty, how did you figure it out?" "That's right. Although you're not the crown prince now, you're just the king of the East China Sea. As long as you don't continue to make mistakes, the Empress Mother will spare her life to protect you from becoming a carefree prince." After a pause, she looked worried and said, "But if you continue to fool around, even Mother." Her eyes turned slightly red before she finished speaking. During the 3 years when Ningyan was abolished, it remained steadfast and unchanged. The ugly things he did were well known to Emperor Ningchun. The emperor had several thoughts of deposing Ningyan as a commoner and exiling her to the border. It was only after she cried and begged in front of Ningchuan that the emperor gave up. But every time she begged, the second time the emperor became a little impatient, perhaps the next time it wouldn't work. So, although she can't change her habit of spoiling Ningyan, she still hopes that her son can turn around as a prodigal son. Even if you're just fooling around and waiting to die, as long as you don't continue to do evil. During his 3 years at a pyramid scheme company, Ningyan faced deceit and deception every day. Empress Xiao's sincere concern made him feel a little warm, so he nodded. However, he has not yet adapted to getting along with Empress Xiao and needs to remain calm and composed. After all, the experience of traveling was a bit shocking, and he was worried that it was just a dream for him. So he said, "Mother, the injury on my son's head is not a big deal. There's no need for the imperial physician to worry. It's time to close the palace gate soon. My son will go and save time to meet my father. The Emperor of Daning, Ning Chun, now sees that Ningan's nose is not his nose, and his eyes are not his eyes. He wishes he hadn't been his legitimate son. He is too lazy to bother himself. Empress Xiao thought that Ningan was really afraid of her father, and seeing that Ning An's injury was not a big deal, she nodded. When Ning An's figure disappeared, Empress Xiao picked up the wooden box on the ground. Inside the wooden box are strips of brocade, on which are written the 8 characters of a woman's birthday. In fact, the female relatives of these ministers often come to the palace for their own purposes. The biggest matchmaker of the Daning dynasty is undoubtedly the Empress in the palace. Pleasing the Empress, she was able to play a matchmaker and bridge the gap, allowing her daughter to marry the prince and royal relatives. At this moment, outside the palace gate, in a carriage, a girl and an elegant-looking woman sat opposite each other. The woman was repeatedly checking the girl's body and breathed a sigh of relief when she found no abnormalities. "Did the East Sea King really not bully you?" the woman asked the girl again. "Mother, really not really. What can the body of the East Sea King, which has been hollowed out by wine and lust, do to her daughter?" The girl looked disdainful. The woman smiled lightly and gave the girl a white glance. "You're okay to say that a daughter's family dances guns and sticks all day long, and your father's foolish thing even indulges you. If this news spreads, how can you get married in the future?" "My daughter is not getting married, it's great to always be with her parents," the girl chuckled. "Nonsense." The woman glared at the young girl and suddenly furrowed her brows. "Before leaving, the Empress asked me for your birth date and 8 characters, implying that the East China Sea Prince has also reached the age of choosing a princess and needs to prepare for him." "What?" The girl almost jumped up and shouted, "Even if I die and turn into dust, I will never marry him. He is just a beast." "Shoo, keep your voice down, don't be overheard by outsiders." The woman's face changed slightly, and then she comforted, "You don't have to worry too much." The Empress also asked for the birthdates and birthdates of the daughters of other families, so she doesn't necessarily fall in love with you. "No, mother, there's a high possibility." The girl was restless. Just now, there were so many female relatives in the palace, and the East Sea King only picked on him and even bullied her. Obviously, he was in love with her. She gritted her teeth for a while and said with hatred, "No, I have to find a way to make the East Sea King dislike me, so he won't choose me." "That's not necessary, the Emperor has been favoring and trusting your father over the years. If you don't want to, he can still refuse." The woman comforted her daughter with a worried expression. "Her surname is Chen, her husband's surname is Guan, and she is known as Lu Chen. His husband's name is Lu Qing, and he is the loyal and brave Marquis of Daning. In recent years, there has been continuous war and chaos, and the loyal and brave Marquis's mansion has made great contributions, earning the trust of Emperor Ning Chun. She dares to say so, she has confidence. Furthermore, she and Lu Qing only have one daughter, Lu Shangyun. I naturally don't want her to marry the spoiled prince of the East Sea. Now that the eldest prince is the ruler of the Eastern Palace, it is unknown whether he will spare this former emperor's legitimate son if he ascends to the throne in the future. If her precious daughter really married him, wouldn't it be like jumping into a fire pit? Besides, with the temperament of the East Sea King, I'm afraid it's a grasshopper after autumn, and it won't last for a few days," she said with a smile. "Why?" Lu Shangyun couldn't understand. Lu Qin held her daughter's hand and said in a slow voice, "Your father said that several ministers have recently criticized the sons and daughters of the powerful for their wrongdoing, subtly mentioning the East China Sea King, and many ministers have agreed. The emperor said that if the East Sea King continues to do evil, the old and new accounts will be counted together, and he will be demoted to a commoner and exiled to the border. That means he only needs to do one more bad thing and it's over." Lu Shangyun widened his eyes. Turns out he just held the life and death of the East Sea King. However, this East Sea King is really cunning. Holding on to the crucial importance of cherishing the reputation of her daughter's family, she can only suffer a hidden loss. But dogs can't change their habit of eating shit. If the East Sea King doesn't do evil, he's not the East Sea King anymore. According to her mother, she doesn't need to worry too much. The sound of hooves clattered as the carriage disappeared into the crowd. At this moment, Ningen also left the palace gate. Looking back at the palace, he headed towards the remembered palace. The capital of the Daning dynasty was Chang'an. There are 6 horizontal streets and 6 vertical streets in Chang'an City, transforming the 20-mile-long and wide Chang'an City into a square and 30.6 square blocks. That is to say, the 36th Minfang in Chang'an City is equivalent to an area. The most bustling residential area among them is the Pingkong Square, which is closest to the imperial palace and is crowded with high-ranking officials and dignitaries. However, the East Sea Prince's mansion in Ning'an is not there. In order to punish Ning'an, Emperor Ning Chun chose a dilapidated palace in a corner of the northeast corner, reduced the cost of the palace, and hoped that he would improve from evil to good. But this deposed prince has his own way. Every time I squander the silver, I run to the palace and cry to Empress Xiao, asking for her personal belongings to eat, drink, and have fun. Later, the road was cut off by Emperor Ning Chun's perception. Thinking along the way, Ning'an arrived at the Wang mansion. Before entering the door, I suddenly heard a mournful cry. 2 burly men walked out of the palace dragging a small maid. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Wang Fu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Wang Fu, Your Highness, don't sell Qiuyuan. Qiuyuan knows how to wash clothes, cook, and grow up a little longer. He can also warm His Highness's bed. In the future, I will eat less, woo-woo. When she saw Ning'an, the servant girl cried even louder. She grabbed the door frame and refused to leave. She still chewed the mantu in her hands. The 2 men quickly bowed to Ning'an, dragging harder and harder. The scene in front of Ning'an was taken aback, and she thought to herself, this girl is really a foodie. What's going on here? It can still be eaten. Immediately, he found information about the little maid in his memory and couldn't help but pat his head. This is another sin created by the deposed prince. Emperor Ning Chun prohibited Empress Xiao from continuing to subsidize the deposed crown prince. The deposed prince, who was accustomed to being extravagant on weekdays, sold the items in the royal mansion. At first, they only sold calligraphy and painting antiques from the royal mansion, but later they even sold their servants. The maid in front of me, named Qiuyuan, was sold by the deposed crown prince for 30 taels yesterday. The 2 men are from a dental clinic and are here today to take care of them. Your Highness, please. The little maid cried bitterly. The 2 men were a bit impatient, and one of them raised his hand to slap the little maid in the face. At this moment, Ning'an suddenly leaned forward and grabbed the man's arm. His Royal Highness, are you? The 2 men looked puzzled. During this period, the servants sold by the East Sea King to their dental shop were not just 1 or 2 anymore. The East Sea King always happily took the silver and happily asked them to take the people away without stopping them. This maid, I won't sell it, I'll give you the silver, Ning'an said word by word. There was a brief silence at the entrance of the Wang mansion. Both the man and the maid looked as if they had seen a ghost. Your Highness, are you really not selling? The man hesitated for a moment and asked. This East Sea King always sells whatever he wants in order to have money to eat, drink, and have fun. It is said that even the jade pendant and ring given to him by the Empress have been pawned. They don't think this little maid is more important than those precious things. Not for sale, Ning'an repeated lightly. The 2 men exchanged a glance and released the little maid. The former crown prince of the East Sea, although out of favor, is now seen as a joke in the eyes of powerful officials in the capital. But it's far from what they can provoke. Furthermore, the East Sea King is cruel, and they do not want to be affected by bad luck. So he stood at the door, waiting for the steward of the palace to deliver the silver. Ningyan ignored the two and helped up the little maid who was still clinging tightly to the door frame. The little maid goddess was stunned and stopped crying, but her body suddenly trembled slightly. Her eyes were no longer as desolate as before, but there was a deep fear in them. Ningyan was stunned for a moment, and after a little thought, she understood the crux of it. The little maid doesn't want to leave the palace because she's worried about being sold to the brothel. But staying in the royal palace and serving Ningyan, this chaotic demon king, may not be her wish either. She can only resort to the milder of the two harms in order to plead with Ningyan to keep her. Ningyan really left her behind, this is too abnormal. The only explanation is that the East Sea King changed his mind and wanted to make fun of her. That's why she's so scared. Ningyan is too lazy to explain. The deposed crown prince has been doing bad things for over a decade, and his reputation is notorious. Is one's own image something that can be easily erased in just a few words? It's too deliberate, and the more you smear it, the darker it becomes. However, this is not without its benefits. The lower limit of deposing the crown prince is too low, no matter what he does, it is equivalent to making progress every day. So, he just needs to act according to his nature. So he said to the little maid, if you don't come in yet, do you still want to go with them? After speaking, he crossed the threshold and entered the palace. The little maid was aroused and followed behind Ningyan with a mournful face. The Donghai Prince's mansion is a three-courtyard layout resembling the character Mu. On both sides of the main entrance of the Wang mansion are gatehouses, which house the gatekeepers, guards, and butlers who guard the entrance of the Wang mansion. The side room in the middle courtyard is occupied by the rough maids who are responsible for cleaning and washing. There is a main hall between the front yard and the middle yard for receiving guests. In the backyard, there are rockeries, trees, and ponds, which are the location of his sleeping quarters. There are also two side rooms, which are occupied by his personal maids. Ningyan led the little maid back, and the front courtyard door and guards opened their mouths in surprise. Everyone cast sympathetic glances at the little maid, sighing in their hearts. In the royal palace, maidservants are divided into rough maidservants and close maidservants. The rough maidservant was responsible for miscellaneous work, with a strong physique and an ugly appearance, so naturally the East Sea King was not interested. But her beautiful and intimate maidservant could not escape her clutches. However, this autumn cloud is somewhat special. Although she is the close maid of the East Sea King has not touched her to this day. This is not because the East Sea King is kind, but because the East Sea King prefers mature women who are older than him. 3 years ago, when Qiu Yun entered the mansion, he was only 10 years old. At the age of only 13, the East Sea King originally intended to raise him for a few more years before taking action. But ultimately, due to a lack of silver and patience, they sold it. But the East Sea King suddenly changed his mind this time. They speculated that the East Sea King had thoughts about Autumn Cloud. Ningyan was not clear about these doors and the dirty thoughts of the guards, and just smiled at them as she passed by. But this smile seemed to make them even more afraid, bending lower. Ningyan doesn't care either. He was both hungry and tired, with a faint pain in the wound on his head. He just wanted to go back to the dormitory to eat and sleep, then calm down and think about how to live the next day. The deposed crown prince is both bad and foolish, unaware that he is already living on the tip of a knife and may die at any time. But he cannot ignore it. God gave him a chance to be reborn. If he couldn't live a carefree life, it would be better to crash and die. Just as he was thinking about it, he arrived at the entrance of the dormitory and saw an 18 or 19-year-old woman lying on the table crying. The woman was dressed in a navy blue long dress, and even when sitting, she couldn't conceal her hot and curvaceous figure, making it difficult to tie her heart and mind. Upon hearing the commotion, the woman lifted her head and took 3 or 2 steps to reach Ningyan. Her tone was mixed with crying, but her tone was as gentle as that of a woman from a water town in Jiangnan. Your Highness came back just in time and sold the maidservants together. The maidservants in the province are sad. Before she could finish speaking, she suddenly saw Qiu Yun behind Ningyan and couldn't help but be stunned. Qiu Yun smiled with tears in her eyes and said, Sister Su Shui, Your Highness said you won't sell me anymore. Ningyan has recognized this woman, who is the second maid of the deposed crown prince, Su Shui. Qiu Yun is his personal maid, and this woman named Su Shui is also his personal maid. Unlike Qiu Yun, who was bought from a dental firm and came from a humble background. This Su Shui was once a palace maid beside Empress Xiao. Throughout dynasties, it has been required in the palace that palace maids have a certain family background and a clear identity. Su Shui can serve Empress Xiao, and of course, she is no exception. Her original name was Li Susui, and she was the daughter of the Li family, one of the 7 major clans in Daning. However, she is a commoner and does not hold much status in the family. After the deposed crown prince was demoted to the title of King of the East Sea, the Empress was worried that the deposed crown prince would be wronged, so she gave him plain water, and even said that a woman a few years older would hurt others. The King of the East China Sea has always been fond of imperial maids, but not of lowlies. He has been envious of vegetarian water for a long time, so naturally 100 are willing. I used it 3 years ago and have been extremely fond of it ever since. But Su Shui is a gentle person. Although he doesn't like the East Sea King in his heart, he still takes care of the deposed crown prince in all aspects due to the Empress's orders. It wasn't until the deposed crown prince sold Qiu Yun, whom he regarded as his younger sister, that she was saddened, and only then did she confront the deposed crown prince for the first time. In the future, don't talk about people in the royal mansion. Even if there is a flower or a tree, I won't sell it. I'm hungry. Do you want the kitchen to prepare some food? Ningyan smiled at the two of them. Yes. Your Highness. The harmless appearance of people and animals in Ningyan made Su Shui's anger seem to have collided with the water, and it immediately dissipated. A strange feeling suddenly arose in my heart. The East Sea King has returned from the palace, why is it a bit different? He never said what he just said. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Human Heart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Human Heart. The sky is approaching dusk, with red clouds covering the sky. The rough maidservants brought steaming hot dishes. There are lotus seed congee, steamed mutton, braised duck, roasted rabbit, smoked venison, etc., which are very rich. Looking at the sumptuous table of dishes, Ningyan burst into a bitter smile. This deposed crown prince can only be said to be the best among the scum. The Dong Hai Prince's mansion has fallen to the point of selling maidservants, and he does not allow the bakery to lower his dietary standards at all. He also forgot this, and it was only then that the dining room followed the usual rules and served so many dishes. Goo goo. He was thinking when suddenly someone's stomach started screaming. Ningyan looked towards Qiu Yun, with the little maid and Su Shui serving on one side. She stared straight at the food on the table, drooling without even noticing it. Su Shui was worried that Qiu Yun's greedy appearance would make Ningyan angry. She lightly bumped her arm against Qiu Yun and quickly interrupted, Your Highness, I'll feed you. In the past, every time the deposed prince had a meal, he would let Su Shui sit on his lap and feed each other, while also touching his hands and feet for pleasure. He ignored Qiu Yun. In contrast, Autumn Cloud naturally has a craving for food. Ningyan had not yet regained consciousness when Su Shui sat on his lap as usual. A refreshing fragrance wafted through my nose, leaving me feeling soft. However, he was able to hold on to it. In the memory of the deposed crown prince, there were any scenes about Su Shui. There is no secret to him about the beautiful palace maid bestowed upon him by Empress Xiao. Cough. I'll do it myself. Ningyan still refused Su Shui. He is not pretending to be reserved, as long as he hooks his fingers, Su Shui will meet any of his requirements. This is the happiness that belongs to the prince. He could only see that this vegetarian water was not sincere, it was just a way to deal with it. Is your highness angry with a servant? Su Shui asked, feeling uneasy in her heart. Previously, the East Sea King always took the initiative to pull her over. She thought it was because of Qiu Yun's situation that made Ningyan unhappy. Ningyan burst into laughter, not expecting her casual words to elicit such a strong reaction from Su Shui. Guessing her thoughts, he deliberately imitated the appearance of the East Sea King, and with a wicked smile, "I just kept my strength, he 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 he." Upon hearing this, Su Shui's face turned slightly red. At this moment, Ningyan said again, "With so many dishes, I can't finish them all. Leave 2 or 3 dishes and share the rest with others." Ah! Qiuyun and Susui both called out, suspecting that they had heard the wrong thing. It is a grace for the East Sea King not to whip the servants of the palace, and now he even gives them these delicious dishes. They naturally couldn't believe it. Ningyan shook her head without explaining and repeated another sentence. As he decided, he only needs to act according to his nature right now, and it will never get worse. Qiuyun and Susui summoned the rough maidservants to bring the dishes to the front with them for everyone to enjoy. "Do you think your highness is planning to sell us tomorrow? Otherwise, why did he suddenly show kindness?" A servant of the royal household sighed. The table was filled with dishes, and the servants of the palace not only did not feel happy, but also sighed inside. Sell it and then sell it. Stay in the East Sea Prince's mansion, short of clothes and food, and often beaten and scolded. "It's better to be sold and eat until you're full tonight," a rough servant girl said greedily. "Yes, being a starving ghost is better than being a starving ghost," someone agreed. After speaking for a while, everyone wolfed down and competed to eat. Their taste buds are happy, but their hearts are uneasy. And Su Shui and Qiu Yun were in the same mood as them at this moment. When the two returned from the front yard, they found that the East Sea King was no longer in front of the table. The food on the table was divided into 2 parts, one was finished, and the remaining part was obviously for the 2 of them. The royal family has a strict hierarchy, and as the close maids of the East Sea King, they do not eat with the male and female maids in front of them. "Sister Su Shui, I'm afraid." Qiu Yun wanted to eat again and looked worried. Thinking that the East Sea King suddenly stopped selling her and divided the dishes greatly. "Is it because I am prepared to take her tonight and feel happy that I will reward everyone?" "I'm also afraid." Su Shui held Qiu Yun's hand. "She is closest to the East Sea King, but tonight these abnormal actions of the East Sea King have made her scalp tingle. She was just thinking about it. Suddenly, I heard snoring coming from the inner room of the dormitory." The 2 of them entered the inner room and found that the East Sea King had not yet taken off his clothes and was lying in bed asleep. As they exchanged a glance and breathed a sigh of relief, their doubts grew larger and larger. Ningyan, who was sleeping, did not know that his casual actions had caused anxiety among the people of the royal family. He slept soundly, as if the fusion of his soul had consumed too much energy. After eating, he couldn't resist the strong drowsiness and fell asleep. Until noon the next day, the other party woke up leisurely. Opening his eyes, he saw Qiu Yun's bright big eyes staring at him. Seeing him wake up, Qiu Yun trembled and was startled. He hesitated and said, "Your Highness, I will serve you to wash and dress." Ningyan looked at herself, now wearing a white profanity suit and pants. It must have been the 2 of them who had taken off his clothes and covered him with a blanket after he fell asleep. In the mist, he still felt like he had washed his face and feet. He secretly said, "This is the simple and unadorned life of ancient princes." Smiling, Ningyan did not refuse the little maid. "Since we have entered this wicked feudal society, we naturally want to follow the customs when in Rome." Dressed and washed, Ningyan arrived outside the dormitory. At this moment, Su Shui was directing eunuchs and palace maids from the palace to move a stack of books into the study on the left side of the dormitory. He couldn't help but laugh when he remembered Empress Zhao's words yesterday. The lunch was distributed to the servants of the Wang mansion in Ningyan, just like last night. After eating, he locked himself in the study. That day, he only had a brief understanding of the historical trajectory here, but he still didn't know much about Daning. It was necessary to master more information. Su Sui and Qiuyan were guarding outside the study, and their shock at the sudden reading of the East Sea King was no less than Empress Zhao's. Other people in the royal mansion are also discussing it. Some people say that the prodigal son of the East Sea King has turned around. Some people also say that the prince of the East Sea must have been reprimanded in the palace, and if he comes back to pretend, his true nature will be revealed in a few days. Some people say that the East Sea King must be planning a big bad thing. These private discussions, Ningyan would rather turn a deaf ear. He just reads books every day and chats with Qiuyan Su Sui. It seems that his behavior is not in line with the behavior style of the East Sea King, which makes him unable to laugh or cry. Both Qiuyan and Suyun, who used to be close to the deposed prince, were more cautious. Ningyan still doesn't explain, nor can she explain. I can't tell everyone that he has traveled through the future world. Then he will really be classified as a mentally ill person. He believed that the people of the royal family were just not used to it now, and as they gradually got used to it, they naturally accepted it. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Hope. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Hope Jingren Palace. This is the residence of Empress Daning. Since collecting a large number of classics to give to Ningyan, this empress has been staring at the East Sea Prince's mansion. Back then, she gave her favorite palace maid Su Shui to the East Sea King, both to take care of him and to keep abreast of his every move. So, what the East Sea King is doing these days is clear to her. She was overjoyed to learn that the Prince of the East Sea had been staying indoors for the past few days, blindly studying and even giving food to the servants of the palace. At the same time, she was also pondering what made the East Sea King change his temperament overnight. After much thought, she suddenly thought of something, and a faint smile welled up at the corner of her mouth. The change of the East Sea King seems to have started with meeting the daughter of the loyal and brave Marquis family. Looking back, she realized that the East Sea King had lied at that time. The injury on his head must have been caused by the daughter of the loyal and brave Ho family. Based on the previous temper of the East Sea King, if he wants to ruin her reputation, how could he still argue for her? It must be the East Sea King who fell in love with the daughter of the loyal and brave Marquis family and felt ashamed of himself, so he was brave and ashamed. Yes, yes. Xiao Yubing's smile grew stronger and stronger, becoming more convinced of this. Since ancient times, heroes have been sad about beauty, and my imperial son cannot avoid vulgarity. Upon realizing this, she immediately called an old maid to serve her, took a pair of jade bracelets, and ordered her to go to the loyal and brave Marquis' mansion to reward Lu Shangyun. At present, this loyal and brave Marquis is a popular figure in front of the emperor, and the influential officials who want to marry him are as noble as a crucian carp crossing the river. She suddenly gave Lu Shangyun a reward, just to tell others that the daughter of the loyal and brave Marquis had fallen in love with her, causing some people to give up. However, she will not immediately facilitate this marriage, but rather prepare to use this marriage as bait to urge the East Sea King to change from evil to good. Otherwise, it's too easy to hold a beautiful woman back. I'm afraid the East Sea King will soon revive his old ways. Her wishful thinking almost caused the entire loyal and brave Marquis' mansion to turn upside down. As soon as the nanny who gave the bracelet left, Lu Shangyun almost burst into tears. The loyal and brave Marquis and the Lu Chen family also showed a worried expression. My family, Shangyun, has a wild personality and a well-known reputation. It is said that the Empress likes women with gentle personalities. What's going on? Loyal and brave Marquis Lu Qing, 36 years old, is in his prime. He has a burly figure and a face as sharp as a knife, and his frequent military campaigns give him an invisible aura. Facing countless troops and horses on the battlefield, he remained calm and composed, but facing this matter, this iron-blooded general was in a state of turmoil. He knows better than anyone what the East Sea King is. What is the difference between marrying his own daughter to him and marrying a beast? On that day when they returned, neither Lu Chen nor Lu Shangyun mentioned encountering the East Sea King in the palace. Lu Chen couldn't keep it any longer and said, "I'm afraid it's not the Empress's intention, but the East Sea King's intention." She recounted in detail the incident where the East Sea King attempted to bully Lu Shangyun but was beaten by Lu Shangyun. "You're just like a beast, Shangyun. You did a good job, but this time you hit him lightly." The loyal and brave Marquis's face turned red with anger, and the East China Sea King actually targeted his precious daughter. If her daughter had lost a single strand of cold hair at that time, he would have gone to the emperor to file a complaint. Let this East Sea King not even become a prince. The current situation in the court is that the crown prince who has entered the Eastern Palace and the third prince who is supported by the aristocratic family are competing against each other. He is just a prince who has fallen out of favor. He doesn't hold his tail and still goes his own way. I really don't know how to write the word death. Dad, what should we do now? I heard that the Prince of the East Sea has changed his past and is studying in the palace all day. Although he must be pretending, if he deceives the emperor cannot help but hear the empress's words. What should we do if we get married? Lu Shangyun was anxious in his heart. On that day when she returned, she constantly made people inquire about the affairs of the East Sea King's mansion. The most hopeful news is that the East Sea King continues to go out and commit crimes. But she just got the least desirable result. This bastard demon king actually started reading. The fox will eventually reveal its tail. Who in the capital doesn't know the temperament of the East Sea King? The emperor knows better than you and me. If the East Sea King were to easily turn around as a prodigal son, the emperor wouldn't oppose him, and the East Palace wouldn't have the chance to become a great prince. The loyal and brave Marquis was not as worried as Lu Shangyun. Lu Shangyun nodded, seemingly following the same principle. However, she still felt a faint unease in her heart. Next, she had to stare at the East Sea King and see when he was going to pretend. Donghai Prince's Mansion, Study. Ningyan closed a thick classic book and put it back on the bookshelf. Now, he has gained a deeper understanding of Daning and the world. Daning is divided into 36 prefectures throughout the country, with prefectures under them, totaling 279 prefectures, and counties under each prefecture. This prefecture is equivalent to a provincial-level administrative unit, and the state is equivalent to a prefecture-level city. In terms of official system, Daning did not appoint a prime minister, but instead divided the functions of prime ministers into 3 court institutions. The Ministry of Shangshu, the Ministry of Zhongshu, and the Ministry of Subordinates. The highest officials of these 3 institutions are Shangshu Ling, Zhongshu Ling, and Shizhong, known as the Sanzai. Under the 3 highest institutions, there are 6 departments under the command of soldiers, households, rituals, officials, workers, and households. In terms of military system, Daning has 24 imperial guards, each with more than 25,000 soldiers, totaling 600,000 imperial guards. Among them, 200,000 are stationed in the capital, and the remaining are stationed in important border military towns. In addition to the Forbidden Army, Daning also has over 800,000 troops, which belong to the local standing army and have a lower status than the Forbidden Army. They are commanded by the inner military government. But these are just the most basic common sense. Even so, some details of the deposed crown prince are not very clear. While reading these classics, he also remembered something. This matter is very important, even related to his family and life. In fact, the current situation of the East Sea King is very dangerous. For the crown prince, his legitimate son's existence has always been a threat, and only death is the safest. During the 3 years of being deposed, every bad deed done by the deposed crown prince would be intentionally or unintentionally transmitted to the ears of Emperor Ningchen. It is impossible without the crown prince's credit. Of course, other princes may not be innocent either. It may be their consensus to overthrow him, the most legitimate heir. And by the time Emperor Ningchen ascended the throne in the 100th year, he would have become even more of a fish and meat on the plank. Empress Xiao could protect him for a while, but not for a lifetime. But there is a way to get him out of this dangerous situation. That is to leave the capital and become a vassal state. When Daning established the country, Emperor Gaozu Ningxing had a far-sighted vision and realized that the military nobility and aristocratic families in Longxi who helped him seize the world would eventually remain strong, posing a threat to the royal status. So before his death, an ancestral system was established, allowing emperors of all dynasties to enfeoff princes. However, due to opposition from the courtiers at that time, after a game of games, it was stipulated that each emperor could only enfeoff 3 princes, and the fiefdom did not allow hereditary inheritance. If he were to leave the capital and become a vassal state, he would be able to stay away from the capital's troubles and be at ease. But there are many princes, and the number of enfeoffments is limited. At least he cannot act recklessly like the deposed prince. But he believes there is no need for deliberate expression. Abandoning the crown prince is equivalent to junk stocks, which cannot fall further. Since that's the case, he might as well follow his own temperament. Anyway, compared to deposing the crown prince, he wouldn't do it worse. Furthermore, next autumn, there will be a 3-year grand ceremony for enfeoffment. Another key message came from the memory of the deposed crown prince, and Ningyan had a calculation in her heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Family Members. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Family Members. Day by day, half a month in a blink of an eye. The life of the royal family has become harmonious due to the changes in Ningyan. The people under the royal family are no longer like before, they will be beaten for no reason because the deposed prince is in a bad mood. Eating good food and drinking good food every day, I have changed my yellow and skinny appearance, and I have gained a lot of weight. They found that the East Sea King was kind and often smiled at them. I no longer go out to stir up trouble, even my favorite brothels and casinos in the past. Besides reading, the East Sea King runs around the palace every morning. Not only do you run by yourself, but also ask them to run together. Although running was tiring, Dong Hai Wang personally led the team and even shouted 1234 for them, making their hearts warm. Your Highness, why do you want us to run together? At night, in the steam-rising bathroom, Ningyan bathes in plain water, while Chiu Yun waits on one side holding clean clothes. After hesitating for a long time, Chiu Yun boldly asked. If it were in the past, I wouldn't dare to speak too much even if I killed her. But during this period, the East Sea King seems to have had a different person. At first, she became more and more careful in serving, afraid of falling into the trap of the East Sea King. But all these days, the East Sea King has remained consistent, which has loosened her guard rope and made her feel like a little deer probing. Ningyan enjoyed the smooth touch left by the gentle water flowing over her body, and chuckled back, I can't say it, I can't say it. He leads the team to run 5 kilometers in the morning every day, which is not a whim, but has his own purpose. The body of the deposed crown prince was hollowed out by wine and lust, and a few more steps would make him pant. If he encountered danger, he had no strength to escape. For Ningyan, this is not feasible. For him, the capital was like a dangerous jungle, with a 16-year-old body and a basic skill of sprinting from 100 meters into 11 seconds. In order to strengthen his body, he also observed his ears and nose and heart, and temporarily endured the delicate vegetarian water. And he called everyone from the Wang mansion together to do team building. Ningyan will not bring the bad technology mastered in 3 years here to harm the people. But when wielding a knife, it's the fault of the person, not the knife. Some things that are beneficial to him can still be used. In his view, the structure of the Wang mansion is actually similar to that of a company. He is the prince equivalent to the chairman, Su Shui and Chiu Yun are the secretaries, the butler is the manager, and the guardian is the security guard. Servants, maids, and accountants are ordinary employees. Previously, under the management of the deposed crown prince, the Wang Mansion Company was divided and had different dreams. If it were not for the authority of the feudal prince, it would have fallen apart. This semi-paralyzed royal mansion will only be his burden and is extremely easy for outsiders to take advantage of. In the future, he will inevitably need to rely on the royal family to do many things, and such a royal family is not acceptable. Therefore, it is imperative to build an efficient and harmonious team centered around him. Next, he still has many means of team building to implement. But speaking it out and letting the royal family understand his purpose would greatly diminish the effect. Chiu-Yun quietly stuck out her tongue, and without the East Sea King saying anything, she naturally dared not ask again. Su Shui gave Ning a bath and exhaled like a orchid. Your Highness, if you don't say it, it must have profound meaning. I just hope it's a good thing. He said she is an illegitimate daughter of the Li family, and her mother comes from a humble background, so she has suffered from bullying in the Li family since childhood. 10 years ago, she was falsely accused and driven out of the Li family. On a cold winter night, she had nowhere to return. Empress Xiao, who was passing by, pitied her and took her as a palace maid with her. The Li family treated her mother differently because she served Empress Xiao. For this, she swore to repay Empress Xiao. Even if she was asked to serve the East Sea King, she would have no regrets. Afterwards, although the King of the East Sea was strong, he gained her body. But in her heart, she never really liked the East Sea King, it was just a master-servant relationship. After all, no one likes the Demon King of the East China Sea. However, she still hopes that the prodigal son of the East Sea King will turn back. On the one hand, it is Empress Zhao's responsibility to her, and on the other hand, no matter what she says, she is a person of the East Sea King. Whether you like it or not, I don't want it to be worse. So, during this period, she was initially surprised and distant, accustomed to it, and hoped that the East Sea King would continue to be like this. Sometimes, she even feels like it's a dream, praying that she won't wake up from it. It will get better and better, Ning'an said to Su Shui as if to herself. During this period, he did not touch Su Shui, but realized that her relationship with the East Sea King was only limited to serving between the master and servant. Of course, whatever he wants Su Shui to do, Su Shui will do it. But this kind of false love seems meaningless, coupled with the reason for exercising, so I don't want to do it. However, he will make this seductive beauty both physically and mentally belong to him. The daily morning run continues, seemingly becoming an unwritten rule in the royal palace. The people under the royal family have gradually become accustomed to it. However, during the free time after the morning run to rest, the East Sea King made a new move. He actually remembered the names of every servant in the royal household, including the lowest and most humble servants and servants. You can easily call out a person's name at will. The East Sea King will also chat with them and learn about each of them. This suddenly made them feel that they had received unprecedented attention, and their hearts trembled uncontrollably. After all, these servants are as lowly as dust, just the private property of the powerful, no different from a dog or a cat. At this moment, the East Sea King blurted out the words, family, to them, almost frightening them to death. His Highness's family consists of the Emperor, Empress, Prince, and Princesses. We are just servants, how dare we be His Highness's family? The crowd trembled and knelt heavily. Even Su Shui and Chiu Yun turned pale. Order of hierarchy in hierarchy, for them, this is a crime of usurpation. Ning'an couldn't help but cry and laugh. Just finished his morning run, he chatted with everyone just like a few days ago, increasing his relationship with them and also equivalent to team intimacy. I didn't pay attention for a moment, so I used to say, from now on, we will be family. I didn't expect this sentence to scare them. However, Ningyan was not prepared to retract his words. Instead, he said, for me, the royal family is like a big family, and I am the head of the family. You are all members of this family, and this is also a kind of family. In the future, I will love you like a parent and hope that all the people in this family will work together to make the East Sea Prince's mansion prosperous. Still silent. The people of the royal household did not speak, but the excitement in their eyes was hard to conceal. Of course, they still have a hint of doubt. Doubt whether the East Sea King is playing tricks on them. Ningyan did not explain. Team building is not achieved overnight, it is a process they must go through. As long as they persist, they will soon trust him. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Crisis of the Royal Palace. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The crisis of the royal palace. Another half-month has passed. The suspicion of Ningyan among the royal family gradually dissipated in an intangible way. Unconsciously, they forgot about the once mischievous East Sea King. Accustomed to Ningyan's every word and action. Suddenly, they realized that the East Sea King had really changed. With the temperament of the East Sea King, it is impossible to disguise oneself for a month. Under the influence of such a East China Sea King, they felt that the palace was no longer as cold and terrifying as before, like a prison. On the contrary, there was a lot of laughter in the royal mansion, and it was as warm as the East Sea King had said, like a big family. They still dare not call the East Sea King their family, as this is a sign of respect and inferiority. But in private, the servants of the royal family sometimes blurt out this word while joking, feeling even more intimate than before. The feeling of plain water and autumn clouds is the deepest. They personally served the East Sea King and observed day by day, believing that his language and behavior were naturally natural and truly came from within, not just pretending to be able to do so. No one can constantly disguise themselves. This makes Su Shui both pleased and slightly disappointed. It is gratifying that she ultimately did not disappoint Empress Zhao's instructions, hoping that the clouds will bloom and the sun will rise. Unfortunately, the East Sea King doesn't seem to stick to her as much as before. The lively temperament of Qiuyun and the innocence of a young girl were also revealed. Before, when she saw Ningyan, it was like a rabbit seeing a jackal. Now it's always chattering and asking questions. After Ningyan didn't show any impatience, the girl became even bolder, following Ningyan like a little tail. Her greedy mouth was also satisfied with her tongue. A sumptuous meal, Ningyan always chooses some for her to taste. Your Highness, Manager Yu and Commander Leng have returned. On this day, Qiuyun Xing rushed back from the front yard, looking excited. Manager Yu, Commander Cold. Ningyan immediately had two images in his mind. His royal mansion naturally has butlers and guards in command. However, 2 months ago, this butler Yu and the Cold Commander took on a mission from him and went to the south. Now they are returning. If they don't come back again, the Wang Fu will have no rice to cook. Qiuyun breathed a sigh of relief. Ningyan burst into a bitter smile. What Qiuyun said is really true. The last time the deposed crown prince wanted to sell autumn clouds was precisely because the royal family was short of money. Now a month has passed, and he neither sells servants of the royal family nor pawns the royal family's property to replenish the warehouse, so the silver naturally decreases. However, the Wang mansion was not originally so difficult. The reason behind this is still that the deposed crown prince wanted to create a big event a few days ago. As the saying goes, a penny is hard to defeat a hero, let alone a deposed prince who grew up in such a golden soup and jade liquid. As the saying goes, it is easy to go from simplicity to extravagance, but it is difficult to go from extravagance to frugality. The royal family is constantly in dire straits, and they continue to spend money for the sake of enjoying delicious food and spicy food. He had to let go of the prince's face and decided to go into business. But in feudal dynasties, scholars, farmers, merchants had the lowest status and were most despised. The deposed crown prince naturally won't personally participate, but let the butler do it, and he can still live up to his dignity. Due to the reduction in spring tea production in Jiangnan this year, the price of tea bricks in the capital has skyrocketed, and selling tea bricks has a significant profit margin, often resulting in profits of twice as much. The deposed crown prince saw that the tea merchants in the capital were making a lot of money, and his eyes turned red. He immediately raised 20,000 taels of silver to give to the two of them, and asked the steward Yu and the commander Leng to go south to purchase tea bricks. I hope the two of them can come back and make a big profit by taking advantage of the scarcity of tea bricks in the capital. For this reason, he even pawned the only remaining asset of the royal mansion, Fengming restaurant, and borrowed 10,000 taels of silver. Although this Fengming restaurant has been experiencing poor business lately, it has brought very little profit to the royal family. But no matter what, it can flow smoothly and not make the life of the royal family unbearable. The deposed crown prince also pawned it, which is like risking everything on the tea brick business. The tea bricks in the capital are still in high demand, and when the steward Yu and the commander Leng return, the palace will not be short of silver. Su Shui also came over and casually said. Ningyan nodded and secretly said that it was absurd to depose the crown prince, but this time he really did something practical for the royal family. This tea brick is actually a tea cake pressed into bricks. The transportation conditions in ancient times were limited, and the distance was too far, even taking several months, which often led to mold in loose tea leaves. Due to the fact that the tea-producing areas are mainly located in the south, tea bricks are used to transport tea from south to north. Not long after, Yu Guanjia and Ling Tongzhu from Sishuku came over. That Yu Guan is a chubby old man with silver white hair and a rosy complexion, exuding a sense of ethereal elegance. However, he lacks two upper front teeth, which makes him somewhat lacking. He used to be a eunuch in the palace, and he served the deposed crown prince from a young age, so he trusted him very much. After the deposed crown prince moved out of the East Palace, this eunuch followed him to the East Sea Prince's mansion and served as the palace steward. The man next to the butler Yu has a thin and tall figure, seemingly without any extra fat on his body. His sword eyebrows are starlit and handsome, but his face is as cold as frost. As his name suggests, his name is Cold Iron and he used to be the guard of Prince Daning Jing. This Prince Jing was the younger brother of Emperor Ning Chun and had no children throughout his life. Due to his bloodline, he has always been very fond of Ningyan. 3 years ago in the Battle of Baiguan, this Prince Jing suffered serious injuries. He passed away shortly after returning to the capital. At the moment of his death, he not only gave himself and his guards a place to go, but also for the sake of peace. He requested Emperor Ning Chun to send the Cold Iron team to the East Sea Prince's mansion. Emperor Ning Chun agreed to this matter. The deposed crown prince leaves tea cool, and few people are willing to follow him, so they can only accept it. Your Highness, the old servant deserves to die. Seeing Ningyan, the remaining money hurried over and knelt down with a plop. Cold Iron's face remained expressionless, but his expression was somewhat gloomy. This is. Ningyan looked surprised and didn't understand what had happened. The remaining money tearfully said, Your Highness, the tea bricks from our royal mansion are about to arrive at the dock. Unexpectedly, the ship leaked water and all the tea bricks in the cabin were soaked. Ah! Upon hearing this, Su Shui couldn't help but cover his mouth. The joy he had just had suddenly turned into panic. At this time, it is the scorching summer of August, and tea bricks soaked in water will quickly become moldy. This batch of tea bricks from the Wang mansion will be worthless. Chiuyan frowned and had a premonition that she was about to go hungry again. Ningyan was stunned for a while, but couldn't help but show a bitter smile. The deposed prince finally overthought it. He thought the tea brick was a candy, but to his surprise, it was a bomb. And it's a well-designed bomb. Otherwise, how could a good ship suddenly leak water? This is just too coincidental, full of conspiracies. Without a doubt, the deposed crown prince was targeted this time. The people targeting him are quite shrewd, and can be said to kill without seeing blood. At present, the entire capital knew that the deposed crown prince had sacrificed his life and turned over using tea bricks. But the other party happened to let the tea bricks go wrong and couldn't sell them. This clearly wanted to depose the crown prince and therefore owed debts, but was eventually forced to do so, causing a storm in the city and embarrassing the royal family. If it could cause trouble in the court again and trigger Emperor Ningchun to punish the East Sea King, it would be more in line with the other party's wishes. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. There is still salvation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. There is still salvation, bastard. Ningyan couldn't help but curse when she thought of the anger. Yu Qian thought he was cursing him and lay trembling on the ground. The East Sea King is cruel and ruthless, and not one or two servants have been killed. This tea brick, the East Sea King, has put all his capital on it. Now that all the tea bricks have been destroyed, one can imagine how angry the East Sea King would be. Today, his old life will be entrusted here. Your Highness, Butler Yu has been serving Your Highness for over a decade without any merit or hardship. I hope Your Highness will forgive me. Su Shui was also mistaken and quickly knelt down to plead for mercy. Qiuyun saw Su Shui kneeling down and followed suit. Cold Iron spoke coldly at this moment and said, Your Highness, there is no need to make things difficult for Steward Yu. I am responsible for guarding the merchant ship. If there is an accident with the tea bricks, I will naturally take responsibility. Just kill me. After the death of King Jing, his heart turned to ashes, if it weren't for his orders. He has long followed Prince Jing, and life and death have nothing to do with him. He gave up on himself, took on the blame, and was just about to settle everything. Your Highness, Commander Lang and the guard the tea bricks all day long, taking every step and fulfilling their duties. The blame is on the old slave, who picked a leaking boat. Upon hearing this, the remaining money pulled up the hem of his long cold iron shirt and took responsibility back. Ningyan regained his senses. But he didn't expect to casually ask such a question, making everyone feel like they were going to the execution ground. Obviously, this is also the residual power of the deposed crown prince. This month, although his image in the hearts of the royal family has greatly improved. But they have not forgotten the cruel image of the deposed prince before. Besides, Yu Qian and this cold commander have just returned, completely unaware of everything. He just doesn't intend to explain. As the king of the East China Sea, one should show both kindness and authority to their opponents, rather than blindly accommodating them. The two of them are somewhat responsible for the leaking tea bricks, and it is appropriate to scold them. However, he is not ready to punish the two immediately. If the Wang mansion is really targeted and the other party's methods are superb, he will not be too harsh on the two of them. So he said, don't argue anymore. Follow me to the dock immediately. I want to see how this ship is leaking. Of course, the most important thing is that he wants to see with his own eyes whether there is a possibility of saving the tea bricks soaked in water. Thank you, Your Highness. The remaining money looked up in confusion. He thought he had heard wrong. The East Sea King did not get angry on the spot, slapping him in the face or kicking him. Is this still the King of the East Sea? Cold Iron was also somewhat surprised, with a hint of surprise on his iceberg-like face, but he immediately hid it. In his heart, he is extremely disgusted with the East Sea King. But since it was an order from Prince Jing and the Emperor, he and his former brothers could only grit their teeth to protect this prince. For the past 3 years, except for the East Sea King who encountered danger and took action to protect. They never act as ghosts for tigers. The East Sea King has always been dissatisfied with them because of this. He can be intimidated by the Emperor's orders, but he cannot replace the guards, so he often deliberately finds fault with them and beats and scolds them. For the East Sea King, this is definitely an excellent opportunity for public revenge. But he did not punish him indiscriminately and harshly. Or is it that this East Sea King has a more ruthless plan? A smile appears on the surface of the plain water. The idea of surplus money is different from that of cold iron. The King of the East Sea can still act like a virtuous prince on such an important matter, probably he has truly reformed. What are you still waiting for, not leading the way? Ningyan urged. He knew that the surplus money and cold iron had not yet adapted to the contrast before and after the East Sea King. Like everyone in the royal mansion, he was too lazy to say much. Over time, one will become accustomed to it. Yes. Your Highness. The remaining money finally came to his senses. He suppressed his doubts and led the way ahead. After all, the current issue of tea bricks is the most crucial. If not handled properly, the royal mansion will really go bankrupt this time. This is not the worst yet. The East Sea King also borrowed a lot of money from the bank, which was all high profits made by Dager, glutinous rice rolls with sweet bean flour. If he can't afford it, these banks won't give up easily. If everything goes wrong in the city, he can't even think about it. The group left the royal mansion. The vehicles, horses, and pedestrians who were originally on their normal journey immediately caused a commotion, and apart from the people of the royal mansion, the 10-meter Niton space centered around him was empty. Last time he returned from the palace, it was the same. At that time, he didn't think deeply, but now he has finally come back to his senses. I believe they must have been scared by the deposed crown prince. Shaking his head in a bitter smile, Ningyan ignored and continued towards the north of the city. Chang'an City is located south of the Qinling Mountains and north of the Wei River. The Wei River flows from west to east and eventually joins the Yellow River. The goods from Daning arrived at the foot of Chang'an City through the largest tributary of the Yellow River. Therefore, the Weishui Wharf located outside Chang'an City is always bustling with activity. After arriving, various boats came and went on the wide water surface, like long dragons. Hard-sail merchant ships were docked on the shore. Li Fu, who was topless, was moving goods from these ships. There are tea shops, restaurants, and many vendors setting up stalls and selling goods a little further away from the dock. Among these docked merchant ships, Ningyan immediately caught sight of the leaking ship in the royal mansion. Because only that ship is semi-submerged in the river water. And in front of the ship were wooden boxes rescued one by one, damp, and it was his tea bricks. Your Highness, just like this, it's all wet. Arriving at the box, Ningyan pulled out a tea brick wrapped in paper from a damaged box, and the remaining money looked regretful. Ningyan's face was solemn, and the tea brick was very heavy, obviously soaked thoroughly. The loss of the Wang mansion this time is really significant. The deposed crown prince hoped that this batch of tea bricks would be bought by the tea shop upon landing, and he would immediately return with interest. Now everything is empty. Moreover, if the news spreads, the banks that lent money to the deposed prince may soon come over to demand debt. Then things will become uncontrollable. Although he has many ways to make money, which is enough to make up for the deficit, there is not enough time for him to worry for 3 to 5 days. Thinking of this, he angrily threw the tea brick onto the ground. But the next second, his expression suddenly changed and he quickly squatted down to examine. The paper used to wrap the tea bricks was damaged, revealing the tea leaves inside. He immediately recognized this type of tea. A thick smile gradually appeared at the corner of the mouth, turning sorrow into joy. Your Highness, I'm afraid he's gone crazy. At first, when the remaining money saw Ningyan get angry, his face turned pale with fear. I thought to myself that I would never escape death. But the next second, the East Sea King was happy again like a child. He can only think that the East Sea King has been too stimulated. Cold Iron also felt something was wrong and cast a puzzled look at the remaining money. But I didn't even pay attention to the extra money. You're lucky, our tea bricks won't lose out, maybe we can make a big profit. At this moment, Ningen stood up, confident. After being promoted to senior management, he has had countless encounters with businessmen and entrepreneurs. Nature knows many products very well. Chang'an is short of tea, which means all teas are in short supply. Therefore, if merchants traveling to the south cannot find the tea they want, they will buy a different type of tea. And the tea that the surplus money brought here is a bit different from other teas. Although it is not a famous product, it is valuable in its unique aspects. As long as he makes good use of one characteristic of this tea. This batch of tea is not only salvageable, but can also be sold at a higher price, which anyone who wants to harm him would never expect. He was secretly delighted when suddenly a guard walked over and handed a wooden board to Cold Iron. Ningen glanced and frowned. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Tea Shop. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Tea Shop. What is this? The remaining money pinched a transparent piece from the edge of the wooden board. Cold Iron said in a deep voice, "This is gum." He understood everything at once. Ningen also noticed the tricks on this wooden board, so he said, "It seems that our East Sea Prince's mansion has indeed been targeted. I don't blame you too for this matter. Generally speaking, a normal ship uses riveting to fix the hull, and the structure is very stable. But to harm people, just destroy a part of the structure and stick it with tree glue. This kind of thing has existed since ancient times. According to The Age of Emperors, during the Zhou dynasty, the people of Chu offered ships glued with tree glue to the Zhou dynasty's army in order to deal with it. These ships disintegrated in the water and drowned many soldiers of the Zhou dynasty. It has to be said that the ship of the royal family was lucky enough to last until Chang'an. Otherwise, the ship would sink in the Yellow River, and he wouldn't even see the shadow of tea bricks. Yu Qian and Ling Tai, among other palace guards, also had to drown. Immediately transport these tea bricks soaked in water back to the royal mansion, so as not to regenerate any branches. At present, he didn't want to worry about who wanted to harm the deposed crown prince. After all, there are too many people who don't deal with the deposed crown prince. He also lacks the ability to investigate. Compared to the current situation, solving the economic crisis in the Wang mansion is the most urgent. Otherwise, the people targeting him will achieve their goals. Transported back to the royal mansion. The remaining money and the Cold Iron exchanged a glance. At this moment, they remembered the overjoyed appearance of the East Sea King just now, full of doubts. You just need to follow suit and don't ask too many questions. Ningen will not tell anyone about the solution to this matter for the time being. Otherwise, once exposed, those who want to deal with him will do everything possible to obstruct. He wants to cover his trump card. Yes, Your Highness, I'll go handle it now. The remaining money didn't dare to ask much, so I quickly went to find the driver and the carriage. Cold Iron followed Ningen's side and remained steadfast. He is the commander of the royal guards and is responsible for the safety of Ningen. Not to mention the forces that want to deal with the deposed crown prince, they cannot count their hands. The deposed crown prince has been committing evil for many years and has also accumulated a large amount of hatred among the people. It is common for older brothers to seek revenge for their younger brothers and husbands to seek revenge for their wives. There is also the Red Flower Society, which is causing chaos everywhere in Daning. In recent years, it has frequently attacked officials and merchants in the capital, so we must be careful. Ningen glanced at the Cold Guard commander. He knew that this commander was quite disgusted with the deposed crown prince. However, even so, due to the last words of Prince Jing, he has been devoted to his duties to this day, which can be said to be quite loyal and righteous. Waiting for the extra money to hire someone, Ningen picked up the nearest tea shop and sat down. It's scorching summer and the weather is scorching hot. He stood under the scorching sun for a while before sweating profusely. The cheeks of Su Shui and Xiao Yun were flushed and even more bright and lovely. He had just sat down when 5 or 6 people stood up in the tea shop. They whispered something to the others, and the tea drinkers hurriedly left, like avoiding the plague god. Ningen saw it, but pretended not to see it. I believe someone in the tea shop recognized him as the king of the East Sea, afraid of causing trouble and fled. The shopkeeper of the tea shop is a middle-aged man. When Ningen came over this way, his heart sank. At this moment, he couldn't hide, and he didn't dare to step forward to pour tea. Susui has always been empathetic and noticed the old man's embarrassment. She went straight over and took the teapot from the old man's hand, pouring tea for Ningen. Chilyun was confused and only thought it was fun. Since she entered the palace, she has not yet come out. Along the way, she had a satisfying look. Looking at the empty tea shop, she said in a crisp voice, "Hee hee, why did everyone run away? Oh, there are still 2 left." Ningen followed Chilyun's gaze and saw an old and a young person sitting across 3 tables. The old man wore a grey cloth long shirt, short clothes and shorts, with goat whiskers and grey hair, like a Confucian scholar. The young man was dressed in green clothes and wore a square scarf on his head, like a scholar. Just the boy's skin is snow white, as delicate as a woman, either dressed as a man or a rabbit. Glancing lightly, Ningen paid no attention and just drank tea while staring at the direction of the dock, with a focus on his tea bricks. Your Highness, what are you doing over there?" Autumn Cloud took a sip of herbal tea and pointed to the tea shop not far south. "There are many people surrounding there. The government is making congee. Since King Jing died in battle, Baiguan was lost, and the 16 states of Yenyun were lost. Hejin Prefecture and Jinding Prefecture have been in frequent wars. In recent years, more and more refugees have fled to the capital." Su Shui sighed. Upon hearing this, Cold Iron remained silent, with a hint of sadness flashing in his eyes. Ningen sighed lightly. 3 years ago, Wanyan Jurchen was always blocked outside of Baiguan. But in the Battle of Baiguan, the generals under King Jing rebelled. Collaborating internally and externally with Wanyan Jurchen, they captured Baiguan. From then on, the Jurchen Iron Cavalry entered an uninhabited land. The court had to deploy heavy troops in Jinding Prefecture and Hejin Prefecture to prevent Wanyan Jurchen from encroaching on the territory of Daning. It's just that the Jurchens are fierce in battle and have a wild nature. There has always been a saying that Jurchens are less than 10,000 and more than 10,000 are invincible. The Daning army has always won less and lost more in battles with the Wanyan Jurchen. This has made some courtiers increasingly fearful, using the excuse of prioritizing internal security in order to resist foreign aggression, advocating for peace talks with the Jin dynasty established by the Wanyan Jurchen and paying annual tribute in exchange for temporary peace. Ningen's sigh caught the attention of the old man and young scholar next door. The 2 of them glanced at Ningen and continued drinking tea. However, it also sparked discussions between the 2. The scholar's voice was clear, "Grandpa, the government feeds congee every day, but refugees still starve to death. I guess it's the same as when we were in Songzhou. There must be many people pretending to be refugees to lead congee. It's really disgusting." The old man smiled wryly and said, "This can't be avoided anywhere, but we can't just stop providing relief to the refugees because of it. We can save one. But think about those people's faces, they always make it difficult to calm down." The conversation between the 2 came, Su Shui and Ling Tai frowned. Obviously, they also detest people who pretend to be refugees and take advantage of congee. Chilyun covered her stomach, shook her little head, and looked sad. They are really pitiful. Starvation is the most terrifying thing. Ningen smiled, and the scholar was indeed disguised as a man. But it didn't matter to him. Instead, he remembered a method for dealing with fake leaders, so he said, "I have a method, but it's a bit damaging." "Your Highness has a way." Su Shui looked surprised. Cold Iron also glanced at Ningen again, slightly surprised. When he returned to the royal mansion and then to the dock, he truly felt that this East Sea King was very different from before he left. This makes him feel strange. What method? Xiao Yun was also eager to know. The old man and the young girl also raised their ears and listened attentively. However, they are more indifferent and do not believe that there will be a solution to this matter. Ning'an said, simple. He asked Cold Iron to lower his body and whispered to him, asking him to take action. Cold Iron's face changed several times as he listened. First angry, then suspicious, finally suddenly, stride to the kanji shed. End of this chapter.